August 1962, 5 days after Marilyn Monroe died, her Brentwood home was being catalogued. Every item, every piece of clothing, every personal belonging, for the estate inventory. Pat Newcomb, Marilyn's friend and publicist, was helping with the process, going through closets, making lists, and in the back of Marilyn's bedroom closet, behind the designer dresses and the fur coats, Pat found something that made her stop breathing. A small box, wrapped carefully in white tissue paper. Pat opened it. Inside were baby shoes, tiny, pink, with the tags still on, never worn, and tucked inside, one of the shoes was a note in Marilyn's handwriting. "For my daughter when she comes." Pat's hands were shaking. She looked deeper in the closet, found another box. Blue baby shoes. Another note. "For my son, whoever you are." Then another box. Yellow shoes. "For my baby. This time will be different." And one more. White booties. "If I ever get to be a mother." 4 pairs of baby shoes. 4 handwritten notes. 4 pregnancies that ended before the babies could ever wear them. Marilyn had been preparing, buying shoes for children she hoped would come. Children who never did, and she'd kept them, hidden in her closet, wrapped carefully, waiting for babies who would never wear them. This is the untold story of the baby shoes Marilyn Monroe kept for the children she never got to hold. Marilyn Monroe wanted to be a mother more than anything else in her life, more than she wanted to be a movie star, more than she wanted to be famous, more than she wanted to be loved by millions. She wanted one thing, a child, her child, someone who would be hers, who she could love, who she could protect, who she could give the child. She never had. But her body wouldn't cooperate, and every time she got pregnant, every time she allowed herself to hope, something went wrong. The first pregnancy was in 1957. Marilyn was 31 years old, married to Arthur Miller, and finally, after years of trying, she was pregnant. She found out in June, told Arthur, told her doctor, told almost no one else because she was superstitious, afraid that if she told people something bad would happen. But she couldn't help herself. She was so excited, so hopeful. And one day in early July, she went to a baby store in Beverly Hills, walked around looking at tiny clothes, tiny blankets, tiny shoes. She picked up a pair of pink newborn shoes, soft, delicate, perfect, and she bought them, paid cash, so there would be no record, no paper trail for the press to find. Took them home and wrapped them in tissue paper. Wrote a note on a small card, "For my daughter when she comes." She hid them in the back of her closet, behind her expensive gowns, where no one would look. Her secret, her hope, her preparation for the baby that was coming. But in August 1957, Marilyn started bleeding, cramping, went to the doctor, and was told that she'd lost the baby. Miscarriage, 7 weeks, too early for the baby to survive. Marilyn was devastated, spent days in bed crying. Arthur tried to comfort her, told her they could try again, that it wasn't her fault, but Marilyn couldn't stop thinking about those pink shoes, wrapped in tissue paper, waiting for a daughter who would never come. She thought about throwing them away, but she couldn't, so she left them in the closet, hidden, a reminder of what she'd lost. The second pregnancy was in 1958. Marilyn was more cautious this time, didn't tell many people, didn't let herself get too excited, but she was pregnant again, and despite her fear, she felt hope. She waited longer this time before going to the baby store. Waited until she was 3 months along, until the doctor said things looked good, until she thought maybe this time would be different. She went back to the same store. This time she bought blue shoes, small, soft, for a boy, paid cash again, took them home, wrote another note, "For my son, Whoever you are, I'm waiting for you. Put them in the closet next to the pink shoes. 2 pairs now, 2 hopes. But at 16 weeks, Marilyn started bleeding again, rushed to the hospital. Doctors tried to stop it, tried to save the pregnancy, but they couldn't. Another miscarriage. This one later, more painful, more traumatic. Marilyn spent a week in the hospital, physically recovering, but emotionally destroyed. She came home to find the blue shoes still wrapped in tissue paper, still waiting for a son who would never wear them. Arthur suggested she get rid of them, said keeping them was unhealthy, was making her pain worse. But Marilyn refused. "These are my babies," she said. "The only part of them I have. I can't throw them away." So the shoes stayed in the closet, pink and blue, 2 lost children. The 3rd pregnancy was in 1959. By this time, Marilyn's marriage to Arthur was falling apart, but she got pregnant again, and despite everything else going wrong in her life, she wanted this baby desperately. This time she was even more cautious. Didn't buy anything for months, tried not to hope too much, tried to protect herself from the pain she knew might be coming. But at 4 months, when the doctor said everything looked healthy, when Marilyn started to show, when it started to feel real, she couldn't help herself. She went back to the baby store. This time she bought yellow shoes, gender neutral, because she didn't know yet if it was a boy or a girl, and she didn't care. She just wanted a healthy baby. The note this time was different, more desperate, more pleading. "For my baby, this time will be different. Please let this time be different." But it wasn't different. At 20 weeks, Marilyn went into premature labor, delivered a baby boy, too small, too early. He lived for 3 hours, long enough for Marilyn to hold him, to see his face, to feel his tiny hand grip her finger. And then he was gone. That loss broke something in Marilyn that never fully healed. She had a breakdown. Couldn't work, couldn't function. The marriage with Arthur ended shortly after. Everything fell apart. And the yellow shoes went into the closet. Next to the pink and the blue, 3 lost babies, 3 pairs of shoes that would never be worn. The 4th and final pregnancy was in early 1961. Marilyn was divorced from Arthur, in a relationship with someone else, and pregnant again. But this time she knew better than to hope, knew that her body seemed unable to carry a baby to term, knew that something was wrong, that she might never be a mother. But some small part of her still hoped, still thought that maybe this time would be different. She bought 1 more pair of baby shoes, white booties, simple, small, and the note she wrote was the saddest of all. "If I ever get to be a mother," not when, if, because by this pregnancy, Marilyn had stopped believing it would happen, had accepted that motherhood might not be in her future, but still couldn't completely let go of the hope. At 8 weeks, she miscarried again, went to the doctor, was told that her endometriosis was severe, that the damage from previous miscarriages had made things worse, that carrying a baby to term was probably impossible now. Marilyn asked the doctor to be honest with her. "Will I ever have a baby?" The doctor hesitated, then said, "It's very unlikely. I'm sorry." Marilyn went home and put the white booties in the closet with the others. 4 pairs now, 4 lost children, 4 broken hopes, and she knew there wouldn't be a 5th. This was it. This was all she would ever have. Baby shoes in a closet, for babies who never came. After that 4th miscarriage, Marilyn's friends noticed a change in her. She became more withdrawn, more depressed, drank more, took more pills, seemed to have lost something essential, some spark that had kept her going through all the other pain in her life. Her psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson, noted in his files that Marilyn's inability to have children was the central tragedy of her life. More than her childhood trauma, more than her failed marriages, more than her struggles with Hollywood. Not being able to be a mother is what's destroying her. In therapy sessions, Marilyn would talk about those baby shoes, about how she couldn't throw them away, about how sometimes she would take them out and look at them, hold them, imagine what her children would have looked like, what their lives would have been like. "I would have been a good mother," Marilyn told Dr. Greenson in a session in 1962. "I would have given them everything I never had. Love, stability, a home. They would have known they were wanted, that they mattered, that I chose them." Dr. Greenson asked why she kept the shoes if they caused her pain. "Because they're all I have," Marilyn said. "Those shoes are the only proof that my babies existed, that they were real, even if they never got to wear them." In the months before her death, Marilyn talked increasingly about adoption. If she couldn't have biological children, maybe she could adopt, give a home to a child who needed one, give herself the chance to be a mother, even if she couldn't give birth. But Hollywood adoption agencies rejected her, said she was single, divorced multiple times, had a history of mental health issues, took prescription medications, wasn't stable enough to be approved for adoption. Marilyn was devastated. "They're saying I'm not good enough to be a mother," she told a friend in July 1962. "The one thing I want more than anything, and I'm not allowed to have it, not through pregnancy, not through adoption. I'm just supposed to accept that I'll never have children." On August 4, 1962, the night Marilyn died, she'd been on the phone with several people. One of them was Dr. Greenson. They talked about her depression, her feelings of worthlessness, and Marilyn mentioned the baby shoes. "I looked at them today," she told him. "The shoes. I don't know why I torture myself like that, but I took them out, and I looked at them, and I thought about what might have been, who those children would have been." Dr. Greenson told her to try to focus on the present, on the things she could control. But Marilyn said, "The only thing I ever really wanted was to be a mother, and I failed at that. So what's the point of anything else?" Less than 12 hours later, Marilyn was dead. 5 days after her death, when Pat Newcomb found those baby shoes in the closet, she broke down crying, called Dr. Greenson, told him what she'd found. "She kept them," Pat said. "All this time, she kept buying shoes for babies she never got to hold. How sad is that? How heartbreaking." Dr. Greenson wasn't surprised. "Marilyn needed those shoes," he said. "They were her way of holding on to hope, of believing that someday it might happen, that someday she'd be a mother. Taking them out and looking at them was painful, but throwing them away would have meant giving up hope completely. And Marilyn couldn't do that, even when hope was destroying her." The baby shoes were included in the estate inventory, listed simply as 4 pairs children's shoes, unworn, with personal notes. The inventory was sealed for decades. Most people didn't know about the shoes, didn't know about this private pain that Marilyn had hidden. In 1999, when Lee Strasberg died, and his widow Anna Strasberg took over the estate, she decided to auction some of Marilyn's personal items. The baby shoes were included in the auction, lot number 47. The auction catalogue description read, 4 pairs of infant shoes, various colors, purchased by Miss Monroe between 1957 to 1961. Never worn, each pair accompanied by a handwritten note from Miss Monroe expressing hope for children. The catalogue didn't explain why the shoes were never worn, didn't mention the miscarriages, just presented them as curious artifacts from Marilyn's life. When the lot came up for bidding, There was a moment of silence in the auction room. People looking at the tiny shoes displayed on the platform, reading the catalogue description, realizing what they were looking at. Not just baby shoes, but symbols of loss, of hope repeatedly destroyed, of a woman who wanted desperately to be a mother and never got the chance. The bidding started at $500, rose quickly, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, finally sold for $3,200 to an anonymous telephone bidder. After the auction, reporters tried to find out who bought the shoes, but the buyer remained anonymous for years. Finally, in 2015, an elderly woman named Margaret Henderson gave an interview and revealed that she had been the buyer. "I saw those shoes at the auction preview," Margaret said, "and I read the notes that came with them. For my daughter when she comes, for my son, whoever you are, and my heart just broke." This was Marilyn Monroe, the most famous woman in the world, and she was buying baby shoes for children she never got to hold, preparing for them, hoping for them, and it never happened. Margaret, who was 78 when she gave the interview, said she bought the shoes because she understood that kind of loss. "I had 4 miscarriages before I finally had my daughter," Margaret said, "and I remember that feeling, that desperate hope with each pregnancy, that need to prepare, to buy something, to make it feel real, to convince yourself that this time will be different, and then the crushing disappointment when it isn't different. When you lose another baby. I never bought shoes for my lost babies, but if I had, they would have looked like Marilyn's shoes, tiny, perfect, waiting for someone who never came." Margaret kept the shoes in her home for years, but eventually donated them to a museum. She wanted other people to see them, to understand this side of Marilyn Monroe that wasn't often discussed. "People think of Marilyn as a sex symbol," Margaret said, "as a movie star, as a tragic figure who died young. But they don't think of her as a woman who desperately wanted to be a mother, who lost 4 babies, who kept buying baby shoes even though she knew the babies would never wear them. That's who Marilyn really was, a woman who wanted a child more than anything, and never got to have one." Today, the baby shoes are part of a traveling exhibit about Marilyn Monroe's life. They're displayed in a glass case, 4 tiny pairs of shoes, pink, blue, yellow, white, with the handwritten notes visible beside them. The exhibit label reads, "Baby shoes purchased by Marilyn Monroe 1957 to 1961. Each pair bought during a pregnancy. None of the pregnancies resulted in a living child. The shoes were found in Monroe's closet after her death, carefully wrapped and preserved. They represent Monroe's greatest unfulfilled desire, motherhood." People who visit the exhibit often spend a long time looking at those shoes, reading the notes, and many of them cry, because there's something universally heartbreaking about those tiny shoes, about the hope they represent, about the loss they symbolize. One visitor writing in the museum's comment book said, "I came to this exhibit expecting to see glamorous dresses and movie memorabilia. I didn't expect to see baby shoes, didn't expect to cry, but those shoes broke my heart. They're so small, so perfect, and they were never worn." Marilyn kept buying them, kept hoping, kept preparing for children who never came. "That's the saddest thing I've ever seen." Another visitor wrote, "My daughter had 3 miscarriages before she finally had my grandson. I remember how devastated she was each time, how she'd prepared a nursery, bought clothes, made plans, and then lost the baby. Marilyn had 4 losses, and never got the happy ending, never got to hold a baby who lived. Those shoes represent 4 broken hearts, 4 lost dreams. I'll never watch a Marilyn Monroe movie the same way again." The baby shoes have become one of the most powerful artifacts in any Marilyn Monroe collection. More powerful than her dresses, more meaningful than her photographs, because they reveal something that was hidden during her lifetime. They show the private pain behind the public smile, the desperate longing beneath the glamorous image. They show that Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a movie star or a sex symbol. She was a woman who wanted to be a mother, who lost 4 babies, who kept buying shoes for children she would never have, who wrapped those shoes carefully and hid them in her closet because she couldn't bear to throw them away, because those shoes were the only things she had that connected her to the babies she'd lost. In one of her last interviews, given just weeks before her death, Marilyn was asked what she wanted most in life. Her answer was immediate. "A child," she said. "I want to be a mother. I want to have a baby. That's the only thing that would make me truly happy. Everything else, the fame, the movies, the success, none of it matters if I can't have that." The interviewer asked if she thought it would happen. Marilyn was quiet for a moment, then said, "I don't know. I hope so. But hope is dangerous. Hope is what hurts the most when things don't work out. And things haven't worked out so far. But I can't stop hoping, even though hope is breaking my heart." Those baby shoes in Marilyn's closet were physical manifestations of that hope. Each pair represented a pregnancy, a possibility, a dream, and each pair also represented a loss, a heartbreak, a dream that died. But Marilyn kept them anyway, kept all 4 pairs, because throwing them away would have meant accepting that her dream was dead. And as long as she had those shoes, as long as she could take them out and look at them and imagine the children who might have worn them, she could keep hoping, even when hope hurt, even when hope was all she had left. If this story makes you see Marilyn Monroe differently, if it reminds you that behind every famous person is a real human being with real pain and real unfulfilled dreams, then subscribe for more untold stories about the woman behind the icon. Hit that like button if you believe every woman who wants to be a mother deserves that chance. And tell us in the comments, did you know about Marilyn's miscarriages? Did you know she kept baby shoes for the children she never had? Sometimes the saddest stories are told by objects, by things people keep, by tiny baby shoes wrapped in tissue paper, waiting in a closet, for children who never came, for babies who never got to wear them, for a mother who never got to see her children take their first steps. Marilyn Monroe wanted to be a mother more than anything, and she never got to be one. But she kept those shoes, kept hoping, kept preparing, even when hope was all she had, even when those tiny shoes were breaking her heart.